Welcome to Mediumship Matters, the podcast dedicated to spiritual growth, connection, and the reality of working with spirit. This season is proudly sponsored by Spirit Social, the brand new online community for the spiritually curious. It's a space where you can connect, share experiences, and access exclusive content without the noise of mainstream social media. With live events, expert insights, and a supportive community, Spirit Social is the place to deepen your journey. Take part in the free 6-month trial by visiting spiritsocial.co or downloading the app from the App Store now. Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah Macintyre. How are you doing? Today, I am re-recording a podcast that I recorded a couple of months ago in preparations for season 7. And I've been listening to them all as I've been getting ready for release. And this one, I just missed the right energy. So I'm attempting to record it again in the hopes that this one is more aligned with my experience and what happened. So I wanted to talk to you about a absolutely rubbish reading that I had recently, and the implications of that and why it was important and why it was helpful in many ways for me. So I guess we start somewhere around the beginning. You know how I tell a story. Hopefully we're on season 7, here, there and everywhere. We may not even get to the reading. We might just go off on such a deek. We'll never find the subject again. But it does, as a lot of roads lead to at the moment, and it might be because I've been creating my own social media platform. It might be for some other reason, but it starts with social media and me finding a medium on social media who is so phenomenal with evidence on their social media posts that it really put the willies up me. Again, I know, again, if you've been around for a long time, you'll go, oh, God, is she still learning this lesson? Yes. And I think potentially it could be a lifetime lesson. So if you're going to listen to this podcast, if we're going to do more seasons, you'll be hearing the story again and again. You might as well bed in with it. But that's part of me that is like a permanent wound of not feeling good enough and imposter syndrome and doubting my mediumship abilities, which I can only surmise that my soul chose and that my soul decided would never be healed. Because on paper, if we were to look at this, you would say, you've done enough mediumship now. You've done hundreds of live shows, thousands of one-on-one readings. You'd know that you could do this. Yes? And I think for most people, that's probably true. I don't know. It certainly isn't for me. So it starts off as all algorithmic social medias do. I see one of her posts. She's demonstrating, and I'm not going to tell you her name, but I will just say she's demonstrating. It's clips of a public demonstration. And I go, wow, that is really good. And if I'm completely honest, as I try to be, my heart sinks because it looks like mediumship that is of a standard that everybody tells me online, trolls tell me I should be at. And I know I might have moments where I can do what she's doing, but it isn't consistent. And of course, my brain goes, well, it's probably just edited for social media. But then I see, because I've watched one, the algorithm goes, oh, she enjoyed that. Let's give her 20 more. So all of a sudden, my entire news feed, which is normally just how I like it, drag queens and political drama, has suddenly become filled with this medium again and again and again. All of these same demonstrations at the same venue by the looks of things, and her bringing through what looks like incredible and specific evidence, names, just you would understand a William. That's his name. Oh my God. And there's little old me watching this at home going, wow, I've been working on my names for 2 years. I mean, I'm getting there. I did it actually, as a little aside, because this is being re-recorded, I can add this story in. Really funny name the other day. So I was doing my demonstration in Glastonbury and I said dichotomy. And the lady that I was actually working with was called Di Cotton. Don't you think that's hilarious? The spirit was called Di Cotton and I said dichotomy. And that really, they went, "Oh," because it was so like the name. And obviously there was other evidence that worked, but it was just really, really funny that if I'd been going looking for a name, I wouldn't have been able to get one. But Spirit knew another way to get one out there, which worked really perfectly. And they knew that the sitter would make sense of that. So it was really perfect. But I also know that if I try and choose to get a name and try and squeeze that out of my mediumship, it all goes tits up. And there is part of me, I think, and I think there is a lot of us that have names down as the standard, the thing we should be aiming for. And as I've said in other podcasts, I'm pretty sure that that idea that names are the pinnacle comes from fraudulent mediums who we now know were looking up people's details. I mean, I was always told that Gordon Higginson, and I'm still reeling from that information about Gordon Higginson I was given, was the pinnacle of being able to get names and addresses. But we now know that he spent time in the records office of every church he worked in. Anyway, so I don't know. I think names are great if you get them. But for me, I've always said, if the only name that I'm going to be able to perceive is second cousin on the other side of the family twice removed, I also don't want it. I once saw a medium working live and somebody couldn't take a name and he said, well, be open to it. They might serve you in Tesco tomorrow. And I don't want that from my names. If it's going to be a name, I want it to be connected and close and specific. And of course, in trying to open up to names, I do get some wrong because I'm forcing it. And that's the way that it goes. Anyway, so I saw this medium getting name after name, talking to a lady about 2 rings, but she'd left one in her car. And the woman was going, oh my God, oh my God. And I was thinking, this is incredible. And as always in that situation, my brain goes to, if there is somebody that is that able in their mediumistic capabilities, then should I be doing mediumship and should I be teaching mediumship? Because I can't do those things. And that is always the way it swings. So I will see somebody that's really good and then I will go, oh my God, I don't know if I can do that. I can't do that. I know I can't do that. Well, maybe I'm wrong. And instantly I go back to the certain people have the gift dialogue. Maybe I don't have the gift when I know that that is bollocks, but that is what happens and I can't help it. So I went into the, oh God, I'm not good enough phase. And my spirit guides very clearly said to me, book a reading with her. And I went online and looked, and her readings are very expensive. And then that made it worse. What is it? Even when you work in this industry, what is it about looking at somebody that charges a huge amount of money for a reading and going, well, they must be good then? Because that's what I did. I looked at her huge price and I went, bloody hell, step away from that, retreat in haste. But that just shows how good she is. I didn't go, well, she's obviously ripping everybody off. I went, shows how good she is. Interesting, eh? And then, of course, the algorithm fed me more of it and I got more and more in a tizzy. And I started to feel very sad about it all and very worried about it all, as I always do. And Spirit just kept saying the same thing. Book a reading with her, book a reading with her. So I did. And it was a real roller coaster. So I booked this reading several weeks in advance, paid up front, fine with that, all happy with that. And then I really sat with myself. So you may have noticed from the podcast, it's certainly something I know about myself. I will sit and analyze all of my intentions and my energy all the time. Spend a lot of time playing out imaginary scenarios in my head and checking my responses and my emotions to those to try and make sure I'm a good person. Amanda would tell you it's my human design. I don't know if it's just a genetic defect, but it is what it is. So I started thinking, what if she is as good as she is on the clips? What will I do with that? And I thought, and I kind of I it's like I question myself. I hope I'm not sounding too much like a nutcase, but I will say, well, if she is really good, are you going to use your platform to put her forward? Are you going to share her on your social medias? Are you going to put her on this podcast and talk to her? And then me going, oh my God, but if I do, she's so much better than me. And having that resistance, and then ultimately deciding that my resistance is my human part, but it's my duty, if she is that good, to share her with everybody. And I just need to get my ego out of the way, berating myself. So I'm in this space, really nervous about it, and then also very excited about it, because I have a lot of readings because I teach. But when you're a teacher and somebody's reading for you, you can't just relax and enjoy the experience, because then you're not doing your job. So you have to sort of be active in the reading experience. You have to be looking at the students blend in their aura with the spirit. You have to be looking at the way they're delivering it. You have to be analysing the words that they're using. You have to be looking if there's space or gaps that they could be expanding the evidence into. So you can't really just sit there and go, oh, how lovely, and receive, because you're having to go through a process in your using your mediumship while your student is working. So I was quite excited about having a reading that I got to just relax in, that I got to receive in. But I was also, if I'm honest, really, really excited to hear from my loved ones, because the development journey, because you can only receive what you are open to receiving, because obviously students are going through an unfoldment process, I'm still unfolding in evidence, me now. So it's something that we basically expand. So if you think of it like encyclopedias, basically as a student, you're sort of learning one encyclopedia of information that you're able to perceive. Then you get a second encyclopedia that you're able to receive, and you add to it and add to it and add to it. And let's say, for example, by the time you're ready to go out there and work with the public and charge for readings, you should probably have 6, 8 encyclopedias of information that you're able to perceive from spirit under your belt. So there can be a real dichotomy in different types of readings and what you're able to perceive and receive. And that is just the way of the world. I always say to my students, it's not that I'm a better medium than you, I've just practiced more. It's all it is. Anyway, so I'm nervous. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to having a really good reading from a professional. It's been a while. I'm also, because I always think that the need of a sitter is a really important energy in a reading. And I'm quite pleased because I can approach this reading with what I consider real need. I really want to hear from one of my loved ones in the spirit world. I really want to know that me taking all of my money and taking this punt on Spirit Social is a good idea. I really want to know that they're around. If one side of the family comes in, I would like acknowledgement of the fact that the family has all fallen out and it has disbanded and no one is in contact with each other anymore. And our whole family has been basically erased through grief and sadness and greed. I would like to hear from some of my relatives that never come through students, I've never heard from. So I'm quite open with who I hear from. I haven't got a fixed idea. And And I'm excited to watch her do her thing. So I'm simultaneously excited because I'm getting a reading and there is a real need for it, but also nervous because I have a feeling that this is going to be the end of my mediumship career. Because let's be honest, once you know you can only do a job half as well, why would you carry on with it? That's my view. And I was, I was saying to myself, I'm really good on the philosophy. I'm really good with spirit guides. Maybe I'll just go back to working in that energy, and evidential mediumship isn't the path for me. So I'm really in this space. I hope I've set the scene of the angst enough for you all. It was angsty. It always is. Lots of feelings and emotions, as always. Now, on the day of the reading, I get an email about 2 hours before the reading from her assistant saying her appointment has run over. So can I dial in a bit later? And I say, sure, not a problem. Although, if I'm absolutely honest, bit of a problem because I'm a Capricorn and I always turn up when I'm supposed to. Now, there may be one listener of recent time who will say, do you always turn up when you're supposed to? Because I had some tech problems on a reading, beginning of this year, and I was late for the appointment. But they will also tell you that I refunded them in full because I do not like being late. I do not like wasting people's time. I think it's really important, that value, and that I respect my clients and treat them with the same respect I would expect. So I'm a bit anally retentive. Who'd have guessed it about this? But also I say, Hannah, don't be a cowbag. It's fine. Just chill. Now, it's a bit of a weird system that this medium uses. I use a booking system. I use Calendly. It's very easy. There's a Zoom link. This is a phone call, and they want you to call through WhatsApp. And they send you instructions that you can only activate live in the moment when you are dialing up at the time of your appointment. And the instructions don't actually work. So it's the time of my appointment. I've got this very expensive reading. Me being me, I've worked out what the cost per minute of this reading is. It's a lot. So I want this reading to wow me. I want to get going. Maybe that's not the right energy to turn up with. I can't help it. I am who I am. Been trained by my financial advisor husband. This is how it works. So I'm having to Google at my appointment time how to do what they've asked me to do to get it to work so that I can call her. And I would say I'm pretty good at tech and I was pretty speedy with that, but I still lost 3 minutes of my reading. So I still lost a chunk of my reading. Not a lot, I know, but bear with me. So I'm a bit panicky and I'm not really in the receiving space. I'm in oh my God, is this ringing? Is this working? How do I get this to happen? I didn't know this was going to happen. Mode. And I arrive. And she is driving her car. I can hear the car driving and she says, oh, hello. Great to hear from you. You've caught me at just the right time. And then she's chatting away and she says, I'm just pulling into my drive now. I hear her handbrake. I hear her turn her keys. I hear her slam her car door. I hear her use her keys to open her front door. And by that time, 5 minutes has gone by. So she wasn't ready to work. It's now 8 minutes into my 30-minute reading. And I'm feeling a little frustrated. But that's okay. We assume that it's all going to be okay. The universe always has a plan. Now, she starts in a really interesting way because I can hear her drinking and I can hear her putting her keys down. I heard her front door shut, so I'm guessing she's in her home now. And she says, so what kind of reading did you want today? And I said, I would like a loved one in spirit connection, please. And then there was a really big gap of, nearly a minute. And then she says, okay, right. Now I'm just going to check. Are you sure you want a loved one in spirit connection? And I said, yeah. And she said, because sometimes people want advice about their love life and then they're disappointed when they don't get that because they've asked for an evidential. And I said, no, I definitely want an evidential, thank you. And then there's this really big long gap. Like, it feels like forever. It probably is a minute and a half. And I assume she's getting in her power and getting ready to work. And then she just goes, so you definitely want an evidential? And I say, yes, please. And this is a really interesting thing. Because I teach a lot of students, and I really think it's important when you're learning that your sitters don't give too much away, that you get used to working with just a yes, no, maybe, don't know, so that you can feel into your mediumship and you have control of it and you learn to work in that space. I am used to, very experienced with, sitting and holding a slightly awkward silence because I do it all day, every day with the students on the gateway. Not because anything was doing anything wrong. There's awkward silences in mediumship all the time, but I'm just used to it. So it didn't even occur to me that I might be being difficult in this space. I was just holding what I would call cheesily holding a space. I was holding a space for her. So she goes, okay, right then, evidential it is. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't have paid all this money for a card reading. So yeah, evidential, please. And she says, okay, here we go. I've got your mum here. Now, my mum is not in spirit. And I did text her after the reading to check. She hadn't gone into spirit. She's fine. So I said, oh, no. And she went, oh, right. Okay. Now, I don't have a problem with this bit. I just want to make this really clear. This bit I have no problem with. Sometimes when you're opening up to spirit, you do, misinterpret an energy, misunderstand it. That's okay. You're still building your power. You've barely touched the spirit that stood beside you. Not a problem for me. I have no problem with that. Also, let's be honest, if you were having an evidential reading with me, I would ask you who you wanted to hear from. So you wouldn't even get that as a piece of evidence from me because you've already told me who you want to hear from. Job's done. And that's why. We know why. I know I've explained this. It's one of those things. So, but in my mind, when I get a bit that is wrong, really wrong, the second bit of evidence has to be really good. Because otherwise, I'm not really proving my mediumship. I'm just, your urges when you get a no at the beginning of a reading is to kind of water things down and be kind of vague because you want to protect yourself from getting another no, but you have to power through. You have to push through that. Her next bit of evidence is I've got a lady here. Not mum then, but I know she's got a big smile on her face. And I just have to go, right. I mean, this is no age, no second attempt at relationship, no sort of anything to give me some sort of structure to know who it is. It's not like everybody in my family would not be pleased to see me except for one person. I can't take as a piece of evidence a smile. I guess I'm lucky. I would hope that all my loved ones will smile. I would hope. Maybe not after this. Who knows? So it's really, really awkward. So far I've got two pieces of evidence. Mum in spirit, and that's wrong, and smile. So she says, okay, this lady's quite chatty. And I think, okay, I know who springs to mind from that. So I say, yep, possibly. Because again, don't know how old they are, don't know relationship. This isn't a lady in her 80s who's very chatty or a lady in her 50s who's very chatty, both of which I can take, but would prefer that so I know which one of the two it is. And so it's all a bit woolly. And then she says to me, don't forget with evidence, it can relate to anybody in your family, living or past, and anyone connected to any of them, living or past. And if you actually try and map that, that is suddenly a huge number of people. And then she says, "Are you married?" And I say, "Yes." And she said, "Well, it could also be your partner's family, anyone living or past, or anyone connected to them." Now, all of a sudden, we've got, a large, so many people in a room, we couldn't fit them in a hall. This is a lot of energy. This is a lot of people. This is uh, and how do you start to filter to be able to get yeses or nos when it is everybody in your lineage living and past and everyone in your partner's lineage living and past? What do I do with this? Well, it's too many. So, and one of them is smiling. It's a smiling female from my family, my lineage, and my husband's family and lineage. And then she says, "Can you take, bearing that in mind, can you take somebody with the name Elizabeth? Could be Liz, could be Betty, could be Betsy, could be Beth." And I go, and I can't, I'm racking my brains. And I say, no, I don't think so. And she says, "Okay, can you take Annie?" And that day I had been messaging Annie T in Dublin. So I was like, oh, maybe, because I'm still, trying to hold a nice space for her. And then she proceeds to give me another name that I can't take. And I start to go, oh, and then she said, "Okay, now I've got your dad here." And I say, "Oh no," because my dad's not in spirit either, thank goodness. And she goes, "Oh, not your dad?" And I say, "No." And she goes, "Not your partner's dad?" And I say, "No." And she says, "Man with a head injury?" And I say, "No." And she says, Connection with William, Bill, Billy, Bob?" And I say, "No." And I'm like, "What?" And this is where it gets really interesting, because in that reading, she gave me 17 names because I took notes. 17 names. And there was one that I could take, which was my grandmother's middle name. And that is it. But don't you think it's actually really interesting? We look at names and we say, how amazing. But if we're honest here, I think Spirit had a hand in this, because what are the odds in a English family lineage that I wouldn't be able to take the name Mary? If we're looking at all of my family and all of my husband's family, living and past, people they know, connections with them, a Liz, well, there probably is one, if we're being honest. It's just, it hasn't popped in with my head yet. I mean, my mother-in-law's ex-neighbour's called Liz, but I can't see that my nan would be bringing her up. But actually, maybe if that's what she's told. And so this is the thing that I find really fascinating, because I've been looking at her mediumship and saying and thinking, God, that's so incredible. But when push comes to shove and she's in front of you one-on-one, she couldn't get any names I could take. And if you're going to pick a really bog standard name like David in the UK, what are the odds that there's somebody in your family lineage with the name David? And she did this thing too, as well. She said, "I want to talk about a connection with the month of February. No more context." Now, I don't mind that as a piece of evidence in a reading when I know I've done enough to prove who it is. So at this point, bearing in mind, I have got no mum in spirit, no dad in spirit. I can take possibly a lady who's smiling, but it could be anyone. I hope all of my loved ones are smiling at me. And no man with a head injury. I think at this point I've got about 8 names, none of which I can take. No physical attributes that I can take. No passings that I can take. And it's things like pieces of evidence which are, I've always been with you ever since I moved into spirit. which to me is not evidential. We know that. We know spirit are doing that. And so there's not one thing that's concrete. And I'm going, oh my God, I just still don't even know who this is, because I'm an unusual sitter. No one needs to prove to me that spirit exists. I know spirit exist. I work with them. So I'm not looking for evidence of the spirit world, and I don't need platitudes from spirit, because I know that they are omnipresent. I know that everyone in spirit who I know who loves me is with me all of the time. And I know that they are simultaneously with everybody else in the family all the time, because that's how omnipresence works. So again, I still don't even know who this communicator is. We've got a man and a woman, mum and dad, neither of which I can take. And then I'm getting just these, I understand a connection with the month of February with no context. Now, if you've got somebody through and you've got the relationship, how old they were when they passed, how they died, their personality, and then you get through a connection with the month of February, that is fine, because you have anchored in enough evidence about that person that they then know it's their granddad who wore flat caps, who kept a pigeon, who loved to have Weetabix for breakfast. They know that you've got him. So when you say February, they can go, oh yes, that was his birthday. But if you've got the entirety of your family, everybody living and past, odds are there'll be somebody. And you look at this for me now in your family tree. If I gave you the name of David, living or past, could you take it? If I gave you the name Annie, could you take it? If I gave you the month of April, could you take it? If we have got these huge, massive expansions. And this is where I think it's fascinating. It was such a weird experience, because the more it went on, it was such an interesting thing. You'd think I'd feel relieved that her mediumship had been misrepresented. But actually, I felt really sad, because I was really hyped up to hear from somebody. And I really wanted to know what they had to say. And instead of which, I got nothing. And she finished dead on when it should have finished, even though she was driving her car. I don't think she was enjoying working with me, to be honest. I think she's used to people just going, oh. And here's where it gets fascinating. I rang Sue afterwards, because she unfortunately has pulled the short straw and has to be my therapist throughout this life. Her and Amanda, I don't know what they did wrong. It's karma. But I rang her and just said, here's the reading I had. And this is where Sue is really interesting, because Sue is a great presenter. She's trained people in public speaking. She's great at talking. She's got she's got so much knowledge about speaking to people, conversation, all of those kind of things. I'm always flying by the seat of my pants. She knows proper processes and stuff like that. And she said to me that she bets that normally when that medium leaves pauses, people fill them. But because I'm used to sitting in that awkward energy, it wasn't that I was being obtuse. It didn't even occur to me to fill the gaps. It didn't even enter my mind that she would want me to, because I really believed in her skills. So I didn't want to get in the way of her abilities. I just wanted to let her do her thing. And I think this is just really fascinating. So, we limped to the end. The dad in spirit became a man in spirit. The head injury that man in spirit had became a heart attack. Still couldn't take it. And really just left me with the question, why misrepresent your mediumship? Because if you're doing one-on-one readings and you're showing a standard of mediumship that you can't achieve, who are you stitching up here? Just yourself. And where is the line between fraudulence and not knowing better? Because she seemed like a perfectly nice person. I don't feel like she was ripping me off. I don't feel like I've been scammed, but maybe I'm naive. But what I do feel like is she doesn't know any better. She thinks she's doing great. Does she think she's doing? She can't possibly really think she's doing great mediumship with that, surely. Maybe she does. Is I mean, I've had like difficult readings. Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. I've had to refund people before, but I have refunded them when it's not got going. But also, I just don't know. I can't work it out. I can't work out what is to be gained by doing these TikToks that are clips that show how great you are when you can't actually do that. What is to be gained by that? Surely you're just stitching yourself up. After the reading, I was quite upset and I went through into the kitchen and I showed my husband and my daughter her TikToks. And I had just thought that she'd taken clips of her best bits. And my daughter, who's even more cynical than me, I don't know what I've managed to create there. She said that she reckons those people on those clips were stooges. She thinks the whole thing is fake. It's all recorded in the same building. She doesn't believe it's even a real show. She thinks it's actors, which is knowingly fraudulent. So I don't know. I don't know what they are. I don't know what this is, but it's fascinating for me. Like, I know what I'm capable of. And I know I don't always hit that because nerves can get in the way and energy can get in the way. And we've talked about all the reasons why. I wonder if she's actually capable because it was just nothing to even give me any inkling of who it was she was communicating with, if she was communicating with somebody. And if you want to know who someone wants to hear from, just be open about it and just ask. I don't see the problem here. Why hold a big gap? Why say, are you sure you want evidential mediumship? And then hold a massive space in the hope that I will go, yes, I really do want evidential mediumship because I want to hear from my aunt. Why hold that space? Why not just be upfront about it and honest about it? So I think it's important to talk about because I think mediumship, as you know, don't worry, I'm not ranting too much about this again, but has been massively misrepresented. All you need to do is look at Tyler Henry's 2 shows on Netflix, the difference between his live readings and his edited readings. That'll tell you everything you need to know about what happens to mediumship and that process of when it gets edited by people who perhaps don't understand the value in showing the ums and the ers and the nos because they don't really get mediumship. They're not mediums. These shows are not edited by spiritual people. They're edited by people who edit all sorts of stuff. They're just looking for the hits, the energy, the excitement, the power, the build. They're not looking for real mediumship. What does that mean for the industry? Because it's one thing having, me there who I have a certain standard that I expect in mediumship. But honestly, I've had better readings from a student who's never done a link before than that. It was shocking. Oh, and I hope it wasn't me. I hope I held a good space for her because that's what you worry about, don't you? You worry that you've got in the way and messed it up and made her feel so uncomfortable that she couldn't possibly work in that energy. But it really was incredibly poor. And now I know why Spirit wanted me to book. Because, yeah, that is a lesson that I probably should have learned. But let's be honest, it was money well spent. It was money well spent because it was yet another reminder that in my determination and my analysis of my mediumship, my determination to get names, and in my analysis of all my mediumship and their lack of names and why haven't I done this and why haven't I got that, that actually these people that are out there getting name after name after name, are they? And I know there are some people that do, but this was a lot. I don't mind the odd name. I get the odd name. That's fine. This was non-stop names all the way through. And what that really means for our expectations. But also, I just keep thinking about all my amazing students who were taking those first leaps into reading for people and setting up their businesses and all of those things. What's it like for them when they see something like this? I know what it did to me after 14 years in working in mediumship. So it doesn't help other mediums. It doesn't help anyone who's looking for mediumship, because that's then their expectation. It doesn't help you, because when I book with you expecting a certain level, you can't do it. It's just the craziest thing to misrepresent your mediumship that way. And I guess that's why I never see her on TikTok Live. There is another medium I see on TikTok Live quite a lot who does seem to get amazing evidence, but also I would say is completely unethical, which is an interesting thing. Goes into missing person cases without asking anybody in the case's permission. You've got a mother whose child is missing, and she'll be telling everyone on TikTok Live that that child is deceased, but she hasn't asked the family if she's allowed to investigate it. So again, there's all of these different things out there, and all you can really do is just get your head down and stay in your lane and try and hold on. And here's my piece of advice for you all. If you start getting up in your head about the quality of your mediumship and whether it's good enough or not, book a reading. Book a reading with a medium. Not because you can expect it to be rubbish, but just because actually I think so much time in our mediumship journey is spent pulling apart our abilities, that when you actually go and sit in front of somebody else and just enjoy a reading, you realise that you're capable of doing everything that they just did for you. And it really helps. Anyway, I would love to do a follow-up to this. So if you're listening, send me in your best bits of readings that you've done or that you've had, but also your worst bits. Send me in your opinions. Let me know what you think. Am I alone in this? Was I expecting too much? Do you think I made a difficult energy? I would love to know. And you can email podcast@hannahmedium.co.uk, and hopefully we can revisit this in season 7 and everyone can wade in. That would be really lovely. So thanks for listening. And remember, your expectations for yourself and your mediumship are probably ridiculous. It's the way it goes. Have a great day.